Last year on Game Sharks. Bionicle Heroes wasn't a great game, but there's one more. Bionicle the game. Released 3 years earlier, it's the only other game to make it to console. So how does it stack up to its successor? If you aren't familiar with the Bionicle lore, here's a quick recap. It doesn't cover everything, just what's in this game. If you don't care or you know it already, you can click here to skip ahead. In the time before time, Bionicle Jesus, named Matanui, descended carrying the Tohunga to an island paradise, also named Matanui. After receiving a copyright strike from the Maori tribes of New Zealand, they rebranded to Matoran and lived in peace for like 1,000 years. Then Makuta happened. Makuta is Matanui's brother, and he's jealous or something. It's never really clearly stated. But anyways, he starts attacking the 6 absurdly geographically diverse villages of Matanui. The elders of these villages, called Turaga, reveal that 6 legendary heroes will fall from the sky and save them. And then they do. They each draw on one of 6 unique elemental powers: fire, water, ice, air, stone, and stone again. Earth. They need to collect 6 masks with these powers and fight the Rahi, the Bionicle version of animal. The reason they're fighting random wild animals is because Makuta controls them using infected masks. Masks are kind of an important thing in Bionicle. So the Toa find Makuta and defeat him, and everything's fine. Then the Borok happen. They're kind of like the Toa, they have elemental powers as well, but they also have OCD and want to clean the world until there's nothing left. They have their own versions of masks called Krana. These also have powers based around coordinating squads, and anybody who wears them will be assimilated into the Borok swarm. Eventually the Toa find the Barag, the leaders of the Borok, and defeat them too. Beating them triggers a trap, but it's a really awful trap that just makes the Toa into Toa Nuva, who are super powerful. But they don't get to stay powerful for long, because recolors of the Borok Kal appear, and they have way cooler powers than the Toa or the Borok. Not only that, but they find a way to steal the Toa Nuva's powers. Eventually, the Toa track them down, and Tahu, their leader, decides to use the legendary mask the Vahi to slow down time to stop them, but it sucks, it doesn't work. So instead they beat them by overloading their powers. So after those filler stories, Makuta is back, and it's revealed that he's a single father, with 6 sons, collectively called the Rakshi. They also have some pretty cool powers, with only some redundancy, but they also have something called Krata, which is like the Krana, but Krata. These slug things have about 50 bajillion powers, so look it up on your own. Anyways, at the same time, the Mask of Light is found, and it's revealed that there's going to be a 7th Toa, and he's gonna beat Makuta for good. Seriously, we mean it this time. So they eventually beat the Rakshi and find the 7th Toa. So he uses that to go find Makuta and beats him, once and for all. Probably. So that's the story Bionicle the game draws on. How well does it make use of this source material? Well, let's just watch this cutscene. So we open to a, quite honestly, kind of pathetic scene. Some of the people of Matanui are putting on a play talking about how great the Toa are. And the Toa are the only ones in the audience. The performance is soon disrupted by one of the villagers, Takua.
Help! Something is chasing me. You have to stop it!
Yeah, the voice acting is not great. At all. We've got Assassin's Creed's Altair over here.
I don't know, but I don't think it's friendly.
Rastafarian Anua.
Makuta lives?
And then,
I'll save you.
Yeah, so not the greatest.
The taint of Makuta.
So in this scene, you'll see the Toa using shields to reflect laser blasts away from them. You might think this is indicating a gameplay mechanic, but nope, it's not like this at all. And so the cutscene ends with Gali, the only female Toa, suggesting they all split up. Which is literally the opposite of her character, but whatever. You control Tahu, the Toa of Fire in the first level. He's their leader. This level introduces you to the game's core mechanics, though I'm not sure I can call them core because they're only used in about half the levels. You have your basic run and jump and one other ability. The ability to shoot lasers. This bothers me to no end. Bionicle is a wellspring of abilities and powers that can be used for gameplay in all sorts of cool ways. And all we get is generic laser beams. Your laser attacks do drain your energy bar pretty quick though, so there is one more thing to look out for. When an enemy attacks you with one of various forms of lasers, you can use your shield to absorb it and restore some energy. The shield lasts only a split second, but there's no animation associated with it, so you can just spam it endlessly. It sucks that this becomes the most effective strategy in combat because it has a very annoying repetitive sound effect. Oh, and by the way, the game's sound design sucks. Besides that, some enemies will drop spheres that will restore your energy, and if you hold down the shield button you can charge it all the way back up. It'll also restore gradually on its own when you're wandering the environment. There are also so-called masks of elemental energy that will restore your health and elemental energy all at once. The game tends to put these masks in relatively difficult to reach places, functionally serving the same purpose as what a 1-up or a collectible would serve in some other platformer. But your energy can be restored so easily, and you only have 4 hits of health, so really going out of your way to collect them is completely pointless. Bionicle the game only has one other collectible. Every stage has things called light stones spread across it like coins. This is a very weird choice of collectible because within the Bionicle universe, these are functionally just flashlights. They do have a really satisfying sound to them when you pick them up though. Finding enough in levels will unlock bonus stuff in the extras menu later in the game. Concept art galleries, trailers, the usual stuff. The objective of this level is to save 5 Matoran. I have no idea why, but they use green Lee Matoran instead of red Tamatoran in this level. And there is a model for Tamatoran in the game, as well as a model for every other type of Matoran, so this is an insanely baffling choice. In fact, the icon they use for when you rescue a Matoran is a Tamatoran, but not only that, it's a completely different model from the one that's actually in the game. And they're not just generic placeholders either. Later on you'll find blue Gamatoran in the correct place. It's just a problem relegated to the first level. Anyways, collecting these Matoran is completely trivial. They're all along your path, they're impossible to miss. Partway through the level you'll meet up with Takua again. He informs you that you need these Matoran to build a friendly Rahi. This will run on a treadmill and open a door which will let you get to the boss fight. But you can run on this treadmill yourself and the door will open. So Takua could literally be doing this for you right now to help you get by. Anyways, you finally get past the door and you fight the first boss, a swarm of Borok. They roll around the stage, invincible, but if you catch them with their shield they'll be stunned for a bit and you can hit them. So yet again the strategy is just to run around with your shield constantly active. Beat them all and Tahu collects a Krana. He comments that it's doing something to his mind.
Oh, what's it doing to my mind? I must tell the others. Chronicler!
Where does this plot point go? Absolutely nowhere, never brought up again. And that's not how Krana work, by the way. You have to wear them. Then Takua shows up again, says he found a mask, and that's the end of that level. Next up, we've got a level with the Ice Toa, Kopaka. Tahu tells him about the Krana, and he sets off to chase after a Borok. And this begins the first of many complete gameplay shifts. Kopaka's level is a sledding level. You have to steer your way down a mountain while chasing after a Borok, stunning it with your shield, just like before. It's around this time you can start to notice something weird about this game. There are special cutscenes you can get if you fail during Kopaka's mission, and one of them involves him being surrounded by a ton of Borok. This is the only moment in the game that features all 6 types of Borok. There's actually a lot of stuff like this in the game. For example, in the extras menu, there are models for all 6 Toa in their basic forms, but Kopaka's level is the last time you play as a basic Toa. That's right, after beating Kopaka's level, you're treated to a completely random scene where some Krana spin around and suddenly they're Toa Nuva. Why does this happen? Who knows? Are they going to explain it? Definitely not! Our first level as a Toa Nuva has us playing as Gali Nuva. It plays a lot like the first level, but it's a lot more open. Now it's a lot more focused around collecting Matoran, and this time they're missable. Gali has 2 gimmicks. She can swim, and it's a very strange type of swimming with no vertical control whatsoever. She can also charge up and use a Nuva Blast. This will destroy dark cages that have Matoran in them. You do this by charging up and then attacking, so it's completely redundant. It's just a time waster, really. It fully drains your energy, but you can just get it right back by charging. And there's no strategy involved with breaking the cages. It's literally just there to make you waste time. You don't need to collect every Matoran, but once you get enough, they'll build you a submarine and take you to the boss fight with the Borok Khal. You really blow through the different iconic Bionicle enemies in this game. No sooner has this random threat shown up and been defeated, Takua shows up and talks about the new most marketable threat, the Rakshi. Apparently they're headed towards Onuwahi, where Onua, the Toa of Earth, is. So what's the next level? You play as Pohatu, the Toa of Stone. I understand it's easy to get the two confused. You play as Pohatu with normal gameplay for about 30 seconds. Then he falls down a pit and the rest of the level is a minecart section. I don't know what the point of this early section is, but you can really tell it's low budget. Look at Pohatu's hand right here. Note how it stays perfectly still. Well, it's because they actually reused this animation for when he's in the minecart and he's holding on to the edge. So this third complete gameplay style switch this time involves reaching out left and right to pick up objects and collect keys to get through this door to Onuwahi. And he gets there just in time to... well, just watch.
Onua, my friend!
Pohatu!
Gali wanted to warn you of creatures. Creatures like this!
No, Pohatu!
Brother?
Your speed is needed elsewhere. Run and warn Tahu. It will give me great pleasure to deal with this. Let me give you a real Onuwahi welcome.
So this next level is another standard one. Onua's gimmick is that he can push certain rocks, and somehow they managed to screw that up. There's no actual push or pull state. Instead, you initiate it by running into it. The reason this doesn't work is because it doesn't lock you to the rock. You can get pushed off the side of it, but also because you can approach from any angle, you need to be pointed directly at your target. The pushing is also yet another completely useless mechanic. It's never used in anything that can be described as a puzzle. Instead, there's a switch right next to the rock and you push it onto that and move on. Besides that, it's pretty standard, but there's one other weird thing to talk about in this level. At one point, you'll encounter Rahi known as Kane Ra. They repeatedly slam themselves into targets, blocking your way. Ignoring the logistics of having random Rahi smash into some targets over and over again for no reason, what really makes this weird is that the game is manual, and even the in-game extras refer to the Kane Ra as having a weakness to being stunned by the explosions from something called a Madu nut. This doesn't appear in the game at all. Since there's no way to stun them, you just have to sneak by. And it feels like you were supposed to be able to stun them because the window of opportunity to get past them is very, very short. However, spamming your shield will help you out yet again. For some strange reason, if a Kane Ra makes contact with you while you have your shield out, rather than being killed instantly, you'll lose all but one of your health. And that's it. It's a very strange programming quirk, I can't explain it. Finally, the level culminates in a battle with Lirak, one of the Rakshi. This fight involves pushing some rocks to cover a vent. This leads to... oh damn, you straight up killed him. So that ends Onua's story. It's never brought up again. Similarly, the next level, starring Liwa, is also complete filler. It's another level about hunting down a Rakshi, this time Panrak. And while it has no story impact, Liwa Nuva's level is by far the longest and most varied. You start off with a gameplay shift kind of like the minecart with Pohatu. This time you're sliding along some trees collecting Matoran. Once you're done with that, you're introduced to Liwa's gimmick, gliding. Now again, gliding seems like something you wouldn't really be able to screw up, but they did it. There are two problems. One, the camera. You can't see what you're about to land on. But the real failure is that your glide can't be cancelled. There's a set amount of time you have to burn through before you stop. That means you either have to glide the exact distance to land on a platform, or you have to circle around awkwardly and hope you still are above it when you land, because the camera definitely isn't going to show you. This awful mechanic reaches new heights with the bubble mechanic. At a point in the level, you have to ride a series of rising bubbles in order to proceed. That means you have to glide out to these moving targets. Pretty much the only way to make this work reliably is to line up your glide so that you land on the bubble directly as it crosses your path. The bubbles are just a little bit too close, so you'll overshoot the glide if you keep going further. But if you try and circle around, the bubbles are way too small of targets and your turns are way too wide when gliding, so you'll definitely fall. But all of this bad design reaches its climax at the end of the level. For this segment, you have to glide behind a gecko, a type of bird, and this segment is drastically faster than any other gliding you've done in this level. and if you stray from the path the gecko leads, you'll fall to your death instantly. And the bird has a habit of making very sharp turns unexpectedly. Once you've worked your way through that though, the level ends with a boss fight against Panrak. You jump around on these raft things and break them, and I'm not really sure what I did to win, but I won. So Liwa, oh and by the way they pronounce his name wrong in this game,
Luva?
claims a Krana from this Rakshi, not a Krata for some reason, and that's that. Onua and Liwa's stages are out of the way, and they'll never be acknowledged again. So just like that, it's time for the final level. The final Rakshi, Kurak, even though there's supposed to be 6, has stolen the Mask of Light. We're back playing as Tahu, and it's up to him to win a race. Not catch it or destroy it or something, no, just win in a race. At first it might not seem like Kurak is using his unique power, just like everyone else in this game. But actually, it's using its power to induce anger in a very subtle way, with a massive difficulty spike. Seriously, this freaking level. It's not that bad, but still, it's not well made, and a big leap in what they expect from the player. So when you finally beat Kurak, it dies for some reason, and the mask ends up with Takua. Turns out it was him, he was the Toa of Light, all along. But then he teleports to Makuta's lair for no reason.
Behold, Makuta! I, the seventh Toa, have come to banish your darkness forever and return Mata Nui from his fitful slumber.
You defeat me? All by yourself? You are nothing. I shall defeat you within the blink of an eye.
So, now it's time to finish the game and beat Makuta. Takanuva, or as they say in the game, Takua Nuva, is the most powerful Toa of them all. He can shoot 2 lasers. Well, at least shooting lasers kinda makes sense for a Toa with light powers. But for some reason they're very short range compared to the ones the Toa normally fire. And that makes the first phase of this fight kinda awkward, because it's a gauntlet against a whole bunch of enemies. It's easy enough, but it's only phase 1. Phase 2 is weird. The goal is to land on a bunch of platforms that will disable Makuta's shield. Then you can use your shield to actually reflect his attacks back at him. So I feel like this must have been a mechanic at some point, right? As you deal more damage, more of the platforms will start to fall away. Luckily, for some reason, Takanuva has Liwa's glide, because when I think light powers, I think short-term flight. So after playing some tennis with Makuta, Takanuva wins, and he puts his mask on Makuta and they fuse together for some reason. He body slams the door, and light and darkness are in balance, I guess, or something. You know what really shows what kind of game this is? The credits are completely silent, and they just use the same generic image they've been using for loading screens this entire game. So yeah, overall a pretty budget game. But if you haven't noticed yet, it seems like there are signs this might not have always been the case. And there's one more sign. Tahu Nuva's level, despite being a lava surfing minigame, starts off for a split second with you playing as normal Tahu Nuva, with unique animations and everything. It's only when you fall a little bit you're forced into the surfing gameplay. And if you look at early trailers and screenshots, you'll see completely different looking levels, including one where you play as Liwa before he turns into a Toa Nuva. And if you look in the extras, there are a ton of unused models, including all 6 Churaga, 6 variations of Matoran, the aforementioned Madu Nut, and the reference to Kainra's weakness. And I think more significantly than that, some of them have animations and some of them are in T-poses. It seems like a huge amount of content was cut or never made for this game. But I feel like even if they'd been able to make everything they wanted, this wouldn't be a much better game. The source material was used very poorly. The first mistake they made was using lasers for everyone instead of the plethora of powers they had at their disposal. The actual designs of the levels range from passable to downright awful. The constant need for a gimmick in every single level prevented anything from being streamlined or polished. Like most Bionicle stuff, the music is pretty good, but between the nonsensical story and inconsistent at best gameplay, Bionicle the game was the perfect storm of bad scheduling, bad ideas, and bad execution. Thanks for watching! Feel free to leave a protodermis or antidermis comment below. If you like this video, Check out the review for Powerpuff Girls Bad Mojo Jojo by Lonely Goomba. I actually helped out with this one. If you want to see endless Twitter essays about how the new Bionicle got it all wrong, you can follow me at Haddock Talk on Twitter. And with all that said, see you next time.